All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're taking the massive marketing hype surrounding the Google Pixel 10 and we're putting it up against a completely brutal 6-month real-world test. Basically, we're throwing the spec sheet out the window and looking at what this thing is actually like to live with day in and day out.
Because really, this is the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? Does Google's massive leap into AI innovation finally have enough pull to drag you out of that perfectly oiled, seamless Apple ecosystem? Let's find out.
So, Part 1. Meet the Pixel 10. Google's ambition this time around is, frankly, massive. They expanded pre-orders for the Pixel 10 to a whopping 33 countries. And a pretty cool milestone here, this rollout actually brings the device directly to Mexico through the Google Store for the very first time. They are pushing incredibly hard to get this phone into more hands globally than ever before. And when you look at their pricing strategy, it's clear they're targeting every single tier of the premium market. We're talking the standard Pixel 10 starting at $799 all the way up to that massive Pro Fold at nearly $1,800. But here's the kicker. To really sweeten the deal, Google bundled a free 1-year subscription to Google AI Pro with every Pro model pre-order. They want you hooked on their most advanced generative tools right out of the box.
Which brings us to Part 2, the AI promise.
Google co-designed their powerful new Tensor G5 chip with their elite DeepMind team, and it's basically the brains behind all these new on-device AI features. Since it runs the Gemini Nano model locally, which by the way is a huge deal for both processing speed and your personal privacy, it promises to absolutely flawlessly organize your life. We're talking proactive info with Magic Q and literally bridging language barriers in real time during phone calls with Voice Translate. On paper, it sounds like having a revolutionary assistant right in your pocket.
All right, Part 3, 6 months later.
But as we all know, a spec sheet only tells half the story. This wasn't your standard sit-at-a-desk review. A reviewer named Sahil Arora over at Ill Gaming actually dual-wielded both the Pixel 10 Pro and the iPhone 17 Pro in public every single day for half a year. As he hilariously put it, people stared. He was constantly swapping his primary SIM back and forth just to catch those tiny, subtle quality-of-life differences that a typical 2-week review completely glosses over.
So let's get into the nitty-gritty. Part 4. Pixel vs. iPhone.
The physical reality here presents a really fascinating trade-off. The Pixel just feels incredible in the hand. Honestly, it's been compared to a luxury watch. And amazingly, it survived being dropped entirely naked, no case at all, without a single dent. But its screen picked up micro-scratches super easily over those 6 months. The iPhone 17 Pro, well, it was the exact opposite. Its frame actually picked up dents from minor drops, but that glass screen stayed absolutely pristine.
Now, when we look at the cameras, it's a total split decision. And it really just depends on your workflow. If you're big into selfies or vlogging, the Pixel wins hands down. It captures these incredibly sharp, highly detailed faces without that weird, artificial plastic smoothing effect. But if you need professional-grade video, the iPhone is still the undisputed king. Its rear cameras just dominate with vastly superior dynamic range, and that 4K ProRes capability gives video editors a level of flexibility that Pixel simply can't match.
Then there's the invisible stuff, like connectivity and screen brightness. In practical, everyday scenarios, like just walking past thick concrete pillars in a house, the Pixel consistently struggled with Wi-Fi dead spots, whereas the iPhone held the signal flawlessly. And when stepping outside into blazing, direct North Indian sunlight, the iPhone screen punched right through the glare without breaking a sweat, while the Pixel, well, it left the reviewers squinting. And let me tell you, it's those tiny daily frictions that really start to add up.
And speaking of the screen, here is a massive point of friction that came up during the test, the Pixel's auto brightness. Get this, over a span of 180 days, this highly touted AI-powered phone never actually learned the reviewer's preference for a brighter screen in dark rooms. Every single night, he had to manually crank it up. Meanwhile, the iPhone learned and adapted almost immediately. For a phone that's literally branded as your most helpful AI device, failing to learn a basic user habit over 6 months is, well, it's a pretty glaring and kind of ironic quirk.
Beyond just the hardware, the daily ecosystem experience tells a very different story. The Pixel has some brilliant, deeply integrated AI tools like Call Screen and Live Translate. But the basic operating system just felt less stable. Android apps would sometimes just randomly swipe on their own, and the notifications could be pretty intrusive. On the flip side, the invisible seamlessness of Apple's ecosystem is just incredibly sticky. Face ID, unlocking the phone before you even consciously look at it, a brilliantly crisp haptic engine for vibrations, and apps that run flawlessly without crashing, it all adds up to a much less frustrating daily ride.
Which brings us to a really interesting realization. After all this, the reviewer ultimately concluded that the perfect device, it actually doesn't exist right now. If he could, he'd build this wild Frankenstein hybrid phone. He'd take the Pixel's premium dent-resistant body and that incredibly sharp front camera, but he'd power the whole shebang entirely with Apple's iOS, their flawless Face ID, and their haptics.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question to mull over before your next upgrade. We've looked at the shiny spec sheets, and we've dug into the messy 6-month reality. So, here's the deal. Are you willing to trade a perfectly oiled, incredibly reliable daily ecosystem for a taste of cutting-edge experimental AI tools? Ultimately, that choice between everyday perfection and bleeding-edge innovation is entirely up to you.